Kripke has three arguments against the descriptivist theory of names. These are the modal argument, the epistemic argument, and the semantic argument. But in order to understand these arguments, first we need to be familiar with some preliminary notions. The first one is the separation of modalities. For philosophers before Kripke, like Qua and Ayer, there is an interdependence between the metaphysical modality and the epistemological modality. So metaphysical status of a proposition determines the way we know that proposition, or the way we know that proposition determines its metaphysical status. Like for these philosophers, there are only necessary a priori and contingent a posteriori propositions. It means that if a proposition is necessary, it cannot be a posteriori. Or if, by the way, by necessary I mean necessarily true. Or if a proposition is a priori known, then it cannot be contingently true. But Kripke argued that, or claims that, we don't have enough reason to believe that there is an interdependence between these two modalities. So then there may be necessary a posteriori and contingent a priori propositions as well. Kripke in turn here is analogous to Kantian revolution. For the philosophers before Kant, like Hume, there are only analytic a priori and synthetic a posteriori propositions, but for Kant adds synthetic a priori propositions as well. The second important notion, preliminary notion, is the rigid designators. Frege's introduction of rigid designators. You know what a designator means. A designator is a linguistic entity, expression that designates, that purports to designate something. The new notion here is rigidity. So a designator is rigid if and only if there is an object A that it designates, I mean this designator designates, with respect to every possible world in which A exists, and never designates another object with respect to any possible world. So let's see if proper names are rigid. Aristotle is a proper name. Aristotle is rigid if and only if there is an object A that it designates with respect to every possible world in which A exists, and never designates another object with respect to any possible world. So then Aristotle is a rigid designator because Aristotle designates Aristotle in all possible worlds, and it does not designate any other objects. But definite descriptions are not rigid because they do not designate same object in all possible worlds. Let me show this distinction between proper names and definite descriptions in terms of rigidity with this diagram. The first one is the actual world, and the other actual world with a set of entity objects, and the others are the possible worlds that we stipulate. These are all different possible worlds. So Aristotle and the author of metaphysics are our expressions. These expressions are not part of any possible world or the actual world. They are like transcendent objects. So Aristotle refers to an object in the actual world, right? Suppose that is this object. This is Aristotle. In all other possible worlds that I stipulate, Aristotle refers to same object, even though those objects may have different properties, different physical, psychological properties. But the author of metaphysics, even though it refers to this object that Aristotle refers in the actual world, the author of metaphysics may refers to other objects in possible worlds, in other possible worlds, in other worlds, right? So then we can say that Aristotle is a rigid designator because it designates same object in all possible worlds, but the author of metaphysics can refer to other objects in different possible worlds. Then we can say that Aristotle might not have been the author of metaphysics, because Aristotle is the author of metaphysics in the actual world, but in a possible world, say in this one, the author of metaphysics is Wittgenstein, not Aristotle. Aristotle might not have been called Aristotle by Greeks, that's also true. In a possible world, his fellow citizens call him Plato in this one. But this one is false, the last one. Aristotle might not have been Aristotle. Aristotle is Aristotle in all possible worlds. See the distinction between these two. Aristotle might not have been Aristotle does not mean that Aristotle might not have been called Aristotle. That's something else. Aristotle, of course, might not have been called Aristotle. In a possible world, Aristotle is called Plato. But when you say Aristotle might not have been Aristotle, that's not the way we use proper names. So the last one is false. Now we can go on with these three arguments against descriptivism. The first one is the model argument. The target of the model argument is the strong version of the descriptivist theory of names, according to which meaning of a proper name is the associated descriptions. In this example, meaning of Aristotle is the philosopher who taught Alexander the Great. In other words, meaning of this proper name and the meaning of is identical with the meaning of this definite description. But the problem here is that proper names, even though proper names are rigid designators, definite descriptions are non-rigid. So there cannot be this identity because they have different properties. One is rigid, another is non-rigid. Kripke says, when I hear the name Hitler, I do get an illusory gut feeling that it's sort of analytic that that man was evil. But really, probably not. Hitler might have spent all his days in quiet in Linz. So we have a possible world here. Might is the sign of the possible world. In that case, or in that possible world, we would not say that then this man would not have been Hitler, for we use the name Hitler just as the name of that man, even in describing other possible worlds. So the name Hitler is a rigid designator. We cannot say, it is not true to say that meaning of Hitler is the associated description. Because even in that possible world, Hitler would refer to Hitler. Even if Hitler might have spent all his days in quiet in Linz. So that's the model argument. There is also this semantic argument. The target of semantic argument is the descriptivist theory of names, according to which associated descriptions plays an important semantic role in proper names, in the analysis of proper names. Like for the descriptivist, meaning of Richard Feynman is a physicist, because this is the associated description. For many language users, this is the associated description with Richard Feynman. Then, in that case, we should say that for many people who use this name, they use this name to refer to somebody, just somebody, not a single unique person. But that's not true. When people use Richard Feynman, even if they are not physicists, they do not know much about Richard Feynman, they use this name to single out Richard Feynman. So then, those associated descriptions do not really play any semantic role in proper names. Similarly, language users may associate wrong descriptions with proper names. This is a famous example for many people. Einstein is the inventor of the atomic bomb. They associate Einstein, his proper name Einstein, with the inventor of the atomic bomb. But that's not true. But according to descriptivism, then when they use this name Einstein, they mean somebody else, not Einstein. They refer to the inventor of the atomic bomb. So, again, associated descriptions do not play any role in the semantics of proper names. The last argument is the epistemic argument. The target of the epistemic argument is the weak version of descriptivism, according to which associated descriptions fix the reference of or the meaning of proper names. They are not the meaning of proper names, but they fix the meaning or reference of proper names. Again, here we have a quote from Kripke's Naming and Necessity. He says, "Suppose Gödel was not in fact the author of this theorem, the incompleteness theorem." According to weak version of descriptivism, the author of the incompleteness theorem fixed the reference of Gödel. But Kripke says, suppose that Gödel was not in fact the author of this theorem. A man named Schmidt, whose body was found in Vienna under mysterious circumstances many years ago, actually did the work in question. His friend Gödel somehow got hold of the manuscript, and it was thereafter attributed to Gödel. So, if descriptions fix the reference, then we must know that Gödel is the author of the theorem a priori. But we cannot say that, even though our belief about Gödel is in fact correct, and that Schmidt's story that Kripke made up is just a fantasy, but we cannot say that that belief constitutes a priori knowledge. Since Gödel is the author of incompleteness theorem is not a priori knowable, we cannot say that that description fixed the reference of Gödel. So when I determine the referent of the name Gödel, I don't say to myself by Gödel, I shall mean the man who proved the incompleteness of arithmetic, whoever he is. That might turn out to be Schmidt or Post. So then the man who proved the incompleteness of arithmetic, whoever he is, does not fix the reference of Gödel. With these three arguments, the modal argument, the semantic argument, and the epistemic argument, Kripke argues against descriptivism, and for many contemporary philosophers of language, mind, and metaphysics, Kripke refutes descriptivism. That's the end of this part. Thanks for listening.